Today, we'll focus on the Hawaii Department of Transportation Highways Construction Site Runoff Control Programs on the islands of Oahu and Maui. The purpose of the programs is to maintain compliance with NPDES permit requirements set by the Department of Health to implement a construction site management program to reduce, to the maximum extent practicable, the discharge of pollutants from both private and public construction projects, implemented within or encroaching on the DOT right-of-way. All HDOT staff, designers, contractors, construction managers, and consultants must be aware of the environmental requirements and incorporate the appropriate best management practices or BMPs into their design to mitigate pollutants from exiting the project site and entering the state municipal separate storm sewer system or open water body. The training topics that will be discussed today include: Number 1, Independent Inspection 101. Where we will cover permit requirements for independent inspections and how inspectors categorize deficiencies identified out on the construction sites. Number 2, Pre-inspection checklist, where we will explain how the HDOT third-party inspectors prepare for initial inspections and inspect active construction projects. And number 3, HDOT independent inspectors will show you common BMP devices currently being used on active DOT highway construction projects. Prior to the initiation of ground-disturbing activities at any site, except for activities associated with the installation of BMPs at a site, an engineer or qualified inspector employed or retained by the permittee who reviews and becomes familiar with the project's site-specific BMP plan and other equivalent documents shall inspect the site to verify BMP devices have been installed correctly and in the correct locations prior to the commencement of ground-disturbing activities. NPDES general permits require the permittee, at a minimum, to have a qualified inspector inspect a project at least once every 7 calendar days or once every 14 calendar days, and within 24 hours of the occurrence of a storm event that produces 0.25 inches or more of rain. Inspections are only required to be performed during the project's normal working hours. For portions of the site that discharge to an impaired water body, the permittee shall conduct an inspection once every 7 calendar days and within 24 hours of the occurrence of a storm event that produces 0.25 inches or more of rain within a 24-hour period. In addition to inspections required by the NPDES permit program, all public construction projects shall be inspected at least monthly by a qualified construction inspector who is independent of the construction projects to be inspected. The permittee may use more than one qualified construction inspector for these inspections. Upon 3 successive monthly inspections that indicate, in total, no critical or major deficiencies or less than 6 minor deficiencies with no more than 3 minor deficiencies in 1 month in a project's BMP inspection or other stormwater management activities, the permittee may decrease the inspection frequency to quarterly. However, if while under a quarterly inspection frequency, an inspection of a project conducted pursuant to this paragraph indicates at least 1 critical or major deficiency or a total of 3 or more minor deficiencies in the project's BMP or other stormwater management activities, the inspection's frequency shall immediately return to no less than monthly. Types of deficiencies used by the project's independent inspector are defined in the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. The deficiency levels are critical, majors, and minors. Critical deficiencies are deficiencies that pose an immediate threat for the discharge of pollutants to the storm drain system, surface water, or state waters. These deficiencies should be corrected or addressed before the close of business, on the day of the inspection in which the deficiency is identified. Notification to DOH should be made as soon as possible and action taken to correct the issue. Major deficiencies are those deficiencies that are significant problems, which could result in the discharge of pollutants to the storm drain system, surface waters, or state waters. Minor deficiencies are those deficiencies that do not pose a threat for discharge of untreated stormwater or pollutants to the storm drain system, surface waters, or state waters, but are not in strict conformance with the SWIP or BMP plan. Corrective action timeframes for major and minor deficiencies differ between Maui and Oahu projects. Independent inspectors on Maui construction projects give the corrective action timeframe of 7 calendar days to correct major deficiencies and 10 calendar days to correct minor deficiencies. This differs from inspectors on Oahu construction projects, who require contractors to correct major and minor deficiencies within 5 calendar days after the inspection has been conducted. There are various resources available for project engineers, inspectors, and contractors to assist you in developing site-specific BMP plans and learning about the various erosion and sediment control devices available. To get more information about the Stormwater Management Pollution Prevention Program or obtain a copy of the Construction BMP Field Manual, visit stormwaterhawaii.com or stormwatermaui.com. On the Designers and Contractors page of Stormwater Hawaii is the Construction BMP Resources icon. When clicked, will take you to the DOT Construction BMP website. Here you'll find a digitized copy of the Construction BMP Field Manual, which provides additional photo examples of good and bad BMP devices, as well as clips from past conference presentations, providing an in-depth explanation of various best management practices. The BMP Field Manual is intended for use by DOT highway staff involved in public and private construction projects, and consultants or contractors involved in projects which require work within DOT highways rights-of-way, or projects which connect or discharge to DOT highways MS4. The purpose of the BMP Manual is to provide guidance on installation and maintenance procedures for construction activities on DOT highway construction projects. Implementation of these BMP controls are intended to prevent or reduce the discharge of pollutants to the Hawaii Department of Transportation MS4 and storm drainage systems, including surface waters, thereby protecting state waters from pollutant discharges. For those who are tasked with developing a project's BMP plan, Table 1 in the Construction BMP Field Manual titled Overview of Stormwater BMP for Construction Operations is a helpful tool to provide designers with a general list of BMP devices commonly used based on the specific construction operation. There are two types of BMP plan templates used on DOT highway contract construction projects. The plan used for permitted projects, or projects issued an NPDES permit, due to an acre or more, must produce an HDOT-approved stormwater pollution prevention plan before earth-disturbing activities begin. The version you should be using is dated April 11, 2019. If the project is not issued an NPDES permit because the total disturbed area is less than 1 acre, the site-specific BMP plan dated November 1, 2022. The site-specific BMP plan is a slimmed-down version of the SWIP and is commonly used on resurfacing projects and projects with smaller overall footprints, as the intent of the plan was to expedite the plan development phase for projects with a smaller potential to pollute or discharge into the MS4. Copies of these plans can be found on www.stormwaterhawaii.com or www.stormwatermaui.com. When reviewing the SWIP prior to conducting the initial inspection, there are certain things I look for. These things consist of checking if all required permits and certifications are obtained, verifying the project boundaries and total amount of disturbed area. Look at the drainage map to identify outfalls and discharge points. Reviewing the erosion and sediment control plan and proposed staging areas, and verify the plan has a copy of a completed solid waste disclosure form. Drainage maps are important to review, as they provide information on where the discharge points are located on the projects and the receiving water bodies of the discharge. These points on the project are high-priority areas to inspect to ensure there are no pollutants exiting the project and entering drainage systems or state waters. It is also valuable information to know the direction of flow to ensure proper BMP devices are installed and maintained, especially in those high-flow areas that tend to accumulate the majority of the sediment and debris from the roadways. Additional inlet protection may be needed beyond the project limits depending on flow direction and the orientation of the road. Phasing BMP installation is a highly valuable tool that is commonly used on DOT construction projects to minimize the duration of exposed soil. Contractors may phase by site or section of the project, but it must be spelled out in the SWIP. Something to keep in mind is that once a BMP device is installed on site, it must be maintained and inspected regularly. Properly phasing installation of BMP devices with construction phases has the potential to save you a lot of time and money. It is also recommended to include removal of BMPs written into your plan to save you from having to go through the process of getting an amendment. When developing the SWIP, the contractor should think about where they want to set up their staging areas. Staging areas must be defined in the plans of the project's SWIP and approved by DOT prior to use. In the case of roadside staging areas for paving equipment, a generic layout may be provided for multiple roadside identified locations. Some things to consider when picking staging area locations on your site is if there is enough space to store all of your equipment for the project. Is there any existing vegetation that will need to be protected? Are there any inlets downslope of the designated staging area that need to be protected? Staging areas can be a significant point source for pollution, so BMPs are necessary to ensure no contaminated stormwater exits the site. Once the SWIP is reviewed and all BMP devices are on the plan, it is time for the independent inspector to schedule an inspection with DOT. The initial independent inspection should occur after a pre-con inspection is conducted by DOT or the construction manager. A copy of this inspection report and signed SWIP review checklist will need to be provided to the independent inspector prior to the initial third-party inspection. The pre-con inspection should verify all BMP devices are properly installed according to plan and manufacturer specifications. If any deficiencies are identified during the pre-con, corrective action should be taken prior to the initial third-party inspection. Once the third-party inspector has reviewed all issued permits and the pre-con inspection report, it is time to conduct the initial inspection. The main areas to focus on when inspecting DOT construction projects throughout the life of the project is their staging areas, disturbed areas, any active erosion and sediment control devices on site, areas where there is sediment buildup, discharge points indicated on the outfall map, locations where stabilization measures have been initiated, and areas where stormwater typically seems to flow. Before heading out to conduct the inspection, here are some pre-inspection tips for the project inspectors responsible for conducting stormwater inspections and reporting corrective actions. Prior to the scheduled third-party inspection, it is recommended to conduct your own BMP inspection to fix any of the simple deficiencies identified and clean up the project site before the third-party inspection. This should minimize the amount of deficiencies identified during the third-party inspection and hopefully decrease the amount of corrective action needed to be taken. Maintenance is the key to a good BMP. It is recommended to walk the site on a daily basis and provide maintenance to BMP devices as needed. This will extend the life of the BMP and increase its effectiveness over time. We also recommend the contractor to bring a repair crew on the inspection to correct any deficiencies during the inspection. Most deficiencies identified on third-party inspections are minor and require a minimal amount of time to correct. If the deficiencies can be corrected during the inspection, this will downgrade the level of deficiency identified by the third-party inspector. Good intentions go a long way with the independent inspectors. They are not out there to scold you, but to work with you to ensure that BMP devices are in place to prevent pollutants from leaving the site and ultimately posing a risk to our natural resources.